Hi. Nice to have you. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about tome.gg. Going to demonstrate the alpha demo, alpha version demo, and talk a little bit about intellectual property and copyright. And let's mute this. Okay, just so I can see live chat. Yeah. So hello and welcome. I'm going to be talking about tome.gg. I'm going to be demonstrating the alpha version that I was able to build out just the recent few weeks. And I want to talk a little bit about intellectual property and copyright and some opportunities I'm leaning towards just to move this project along. So thank you for being here, and I'll just get straight to it. So here's tome.gg. You can just visit this just by going tome.gg, and this should open up the documentation or this very basic site that I have that just explains what it is. Long story short, what this is it's an app that would enable learners through contextualized learning. So if, for example, you might be playing games like Valorant or Dota 2, this app synthesizes concepts at play within those games. So I will actually demonstrate that because I think it's a lot simpler to actually just show the value, right? So that's the whole point of why I actually made the prototype. So I'll just go ahead here to the alpha version of the app. And what we'll see here is a very basic app so far. So tome.gg, it's the modern day tome of knowledge for gamers and Netflix bingers alike. So I have an example here. I have some pages that I've listed out. So there's one page currently, and I plan to actually populate this later on. So I'll talk about generating content or curating content later. But yeah, so in this example of tone.gg, there's one page called Timing is Essential. So if you go to Timing is Essential, we'll see here the concept of timing being essential, and there's some little bits of explanation about why timing is important, right? Timing is important because knowing your timings would mean you know when to take your opportunities and when you should just be waiting or just letting time pass, right? Sticking with your current plan and knowing when to actually shift gears or shift strategies or shift direction, right? So here's an example of that. There's a video here, and we'll just go ahead and play it. I'm gonna go ahead and mute this one first, and we'll play this video. Yeah, so I'll just put back the background music. So yeah, that's one example of timing being essential, right? Just knowing when to actually jump in and take advantage of your skills, right? And coordinating that with your teammates. That's how you actually become victorious. It's that being able to communicate as a team and defeat things, right? Defeat enemies. So that's like an example of a page in tome.gg. There's a topic, there's a concept at play in a certain game or TV series, and it's basically expounded on that. So for some context, I'm part of a social entrepreneurship course that I'm taking up right now, and I am talking to different kinds of people giving me feedback about tome.gg, and I really appreciate it. And that's also why I'm actually talking about tome.gg right now, streaming it on Twitch and also on Facebook, because I want to actually get feedback and figure out how I can um, move this project along. So this would require content creation, right? So let's talk about content creation. Um, some of the feedback given to me in that social entrepreneurship course is one thing I should be careful about is intellectual property, right? So for example, the video that we just watched, right? That's actually a snippet from somebody else's YouTube video. So there's that kind of gray area of like, okay, when is it considered fair use, right? There's this concept called fair use. So fair use allows limited use of copyrighted material without permission for purposes such as criticism, parody, news reporting, research, scholarship, and teaching. And there are 4 factors to consider when determining when your use is a fair one. And there's this set of 4 factors and etc. And then there's this fair use checklist that they were mentioning. And so I basically went through it and I was going through like the certain questions, things that favor fair use and things that oppose fair use. So just doing some initial research. For example, the content that we were watching is within entertainment, right? And then there's also cases where it's highly creative work. It's a video, etc. So I'm at that point of like, okay, I want to create this tome.gg platform, but I also want to, do it within the legal means, what's appropriate. So what I'm doing right now is I'm considering, okay, I just want to get the project going along, right? Do a shitty job, right? Right? Just do a shitty job. Let's just get this up and going. Right now, it's not monetized. So let's stop being a perfectionist about knowing the law and, not moving until we have everything out organized and orderly. Let's just put in the work. So the thing that I'm doing right now is I plan to actually watch some coaching videos on Valorant or Dota 2. Most likely Dota 2 because I really love Dota 2. And insert pages on Tome, right? I just want to insert pages in Tome. I want to populate these pages, collect all of the different kinds of, okay, timing is essential. This is how it's done, right? Opportunity cost. This is how it happens in play, right? Or pressing your advantage. Like when should you be pressing your advantage? What does that look like when it's done correctly? When does pressing your advantage get misused? Like you weren't actually supposed to be pressing your advantage at that time. So I want to populate those pages, right? And create that content. And the way that I think I can move forward with this would be coordinating with people who already own the content that I would be curating. Because that basically skips over the whole challenge of like being constrained about fair use and needing to have ownership of that copyright. So I basically look for a partner, right? Look for a partner. So there's this video by BSJ and Eri Neeman back in 2020, May 31, 2020, where they go through escaping the trench with Eri Neeman, and it's getting out of the Guardian Dota coaching series with BSJ. I really like this. It was super fun to watch. I think I was watching this a few months just after it was released. Really good content. I haven't finished the whole thing, but it basically has a lot of learning. It has a lot of like concepts at play, which BSG basically breaks down, right? For Eri Neeman to just pick up. So I'm like, okay, there's content that's readily available on platforms like YouTube. My goal is to figure out how to like what tome.gg fundamentally is that it is a way to navigate. It's a highway. Tome.gg is a highway. It's a map that basically enables people to find content that's relevant to them, right? Like that's so vague, Darren. What do you mean? Okay, this is what I mean. If we're talking about, hey, I feel like one deficiency of mine is not knowing when my timing is good, right? I don't know what my timing is. I'm 25 years old or I'm 35 years old. I'm not really sure what I should be doing. I feel like I'm not taking good advantages of the opportunities coming my way. I'm so lost. I don't know what to do, right? And that's very much the same way as playing Dota 2 and not knowing what early game, mid game, and late game is. This is the same as, for example, um, the common pattern in human life is you go through university when you're young because you don't know a lot and you're just supposed to be fed, information, and you just absorb it. When you get to university, that's basically like grade school and high school. But like when you get to university, okay, you have to be more independent now. When you get into like workplace, okay, there's just problems in front of you and you just have to solve them. There's that progression, right? There's that progression of slowly growing responsibility, and being weaned off from all of that spoon feeding of information. Um, and opportunities vary depending on those kinds of timing. So I'm breaking that down because for a person that's lost, there are some concepts that you may be able to read about. You read the road less traveled, or seven highly effective habits of teens or something like that. I can't remember what the books were, but fundamentally there are concepts at play, and there are opportunities for people to find those concepts at play in the games and TV series that they already love. That's what Tome.gg is. It's a highway. It's a highway that, like, hey, if I'm studying timing, here are all examples of timing that are relevant to me. I am a Dota 2 player, so I want to see Dota 2 examples. Yes, I know what great timing looks like. I know that. I regularly play Dota 2. I know what that looks like. I know how it feels like when I'm doing it right. And that's the kind of value that I want people to have, that kind of highway of learning, right? It's basically what I mean about transfer learning. We already learn about things from games and pop culture, and the goal is be able to strengthen those highways of like things that you learn in games, transfer that to your professional and personal growth. That's what Tome.gg is. So we're talking about content, right? And we're talking about Eri Neeman going through that coaching session with BSJ, which was super fascinating to watch. Now, what I want to do is basically have access, have authorized access to actually curate that content. So, yeah, I just want to do that. So I checked out Eri Neeman. He was like linked up here by BSJ, and I checked out his channel and just started looking for ways to connect with him. And there's basically this website by Eri Neeman, and I go check it out. He's basically a host, right? He's an MC. He cares about connection and communication, making people laugh. I really like him. He's so magnetic actually in the YouTube video where he goes through his sessions. It's very, very entertaining. So I basically, there was like a start chat. So we go, okay, great. So let's just go ahead, send him a message. And I did. So I sent him a message, told him what Tome.gg was. I told him like who I am, what my background is, and what I hope to do. So in more detail, what I do hope to do is go through his 5 weeks, his existing content of 5-week sessions of BSJ coaching on Dota 2, and file them as pages on Tome, right? File them as pages on Tome. And the opportunity there is that, people that want to learn have those kinds of highways into coaching sessions with BSJ and Eri Neeman, expounding on those specific topics, right? So I see Tome.gg as this kind of amplifier, this platform where people can actually curate content from existing content. Like, for example, you might be a YouTube streamer, like let's say Eri Neeman or BSJ. You produce content all together. This becomes some kind of platform where your audiences can participate in the content that you actually create. It's somewhat similar to Twitch, where you can actually clip things. You can clip things and then you can like give it a title and everything, right? Like that's Twitch. But this is more focused on the domain of actually education and learning. That's primarily what I would be building on top of Tome. right? There will be pages about timing, about opportunity, about economics, game theory, stuff like that. And I wanted to become a platform where content creators like Eri Neeman and BSJ collaborate with their audiences, and then it becomes like this tome of knowledge, right? And you basically get to learn. Because I love learning. That's where I'm heading with this. Um, yeah. Um, so I sent it out. Uh, um, yeah. I'm not entirely sure yet if I want to go with Valorant or like Dota 2, but for sure I care and I love Dota 2, so I'm definitely gonna be like, I think it's pretty clear. I think it's coming closer to the idea of me doing Dota 2 related content. Um, yeah, curating Dota 2 content. Um, yeah, I think that's it. So just for like an example of what I actually want to accomplish, right? Let's go over some parts of the session with BSJ and Eri Neiman. And I want to like highlight certain concepts that I actually want to talk about, right? So best case scenario, I actually have blog posts about these things already because I love talking about learning and studying and growing. But unfortunately I don't have that much time recently to actually write blog posts and tweet and stuff. But I do want to do that. So here's this session. I've demonstrated tome.gg and my plans for it. Now I want to actually like go a little meta. Like watch this video with Eri Neeman and BSJ and go a little meta and talk about it from the perspective of like tome.gg and like what my directions are for the um, what my directions are for the platform for tome.gg. So let's go ahead and do that right now. I'm just gonna pause my background music here. I'm gonna get to escaping the trench, and I guess for now it's gonna be a little bit like a reaction video. I'm just gonna be observing them and just giving feedback or my thoughts about how this contextualizes to tome.gg. Yeah, so let's do that. Let's go.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, sweet, we're good. Okay.
Sweet.
Okay, so do you want to introduce what's going on here? Introduce
Yeah.
yourself.
Of course. Hi. So, guys, this is gonna be a 5-week coaching series with, of course, Mr. BSJ. I can call you Coach B, right?
You can call me whatever the hell you want, you know?
Coach B. Yeah, it just rolls off the tongue really nicely.
Makes me sound
But,
like the second best coach you could find, but I'll take it, you know?
No, that's not true, buddy.
You got Coach A and Coach B.
It all led to this, man. So I mean, I'm super excited, dude. But yeah, Predator Philippines made this very much possible, and I'm super excited, dude. And we are starting today, and we're gonna do this for 5 weeks. And you, sir, hopefully you're gonna. I'm sure you're gonna help me get out of Guardian because
I hope so.
this is the current rank I'm in, and so far, from what I have is I really enjoy the way you coach because you do teach you teach principles basically, which I love, man. I love the way you coach in that sense.
Let's just stop there. I love concepts and principles too. I love learning, dude, and learning in the games that I care about. Ah, Lord, thank you.
Banana slam giant.
I'm gonna give you the replay IDs right now.
Okay, cool.
1 second. I thought, but just a bit of history.
Okay.
Again, hello chat. I've never played any MOBA. Like growing up, I never got into Red Alert, StarCraft, or Dota 1 or Battle Realms or any RTS. So in terms of mechanics, this is really just a first for me. And I tried to get into Dota back in 2016 after hosting ESL 1 Manila, but I've been active with the Dota 2 community ever since 2012. But when it was after ESL, I was just like, okay, I should really, really just try to learn the game, and it's the least I could do for the community. And Bro, it was so hard, man.
Dota's a hard
It
game.
was, bro. I'll be honest. I hated it, man. It was incredibly frustrating. I had no idea what I was doing, and I honestly never really got the big picture of what it takes to win a Dota game until 4 years after. I mean, I had the street. Purge taught me a few things, and he helped me get the big picture, and that's when things started becoming fun, bro. Like when I finally got it, I'm just like, oh shit.
Okay, so this is like where I want to like stop and pull back a little bit. This is exactly this is also how I felt when I was like studying Dota. But what I want to like pull back here is we experience this in life. We experience this in life. Like I really don't know what the hell I'm doing. I don't know how to actually win in games, win in Dota, win in life. I don't know the rules of the game in life. But then it only hit me like 4 years later. And like that's the point. This is the point of Tome.gg. We can learn a lot faster in the smaller, microcosm of a game, right? And then apply those kinds of learning in our personal life. Because if we can iterate faster in those games, then, you just extract those learning and you apply it in life and tada, learning.
Shit, oh, this is what it means to win games, and that's when I got it. But is it normal to like take 4 years or like just have that much frustration?
I would say so. I think the hard part about Dota, like I was gonna kind of introduce what I was going for people who've never watched my coaching sessions, or just explain to you and anyone else who's unfamiliar. I think there's a lot of information in Dota, and I think trying to process it all makes no sense. Like you just can't, so it kind of forces this like panic reaction. And so what I've tried to teach in my coaching sessions a lot of times is not necessarily things people have never thought about or people have never heard, but it's also like I'm telling you the right things to think about. Like at this point in the game, these are your 5 choices. You got to do one of them, but every game is going to be a bit different.
So I've been muted. Okay. So what I wanted to say was I love what like BSJ is talking about, because it's the exact same thing as having access to the internet. You have Wikipedia, you have access to like, Cornell University, like open education kind of stuff. But then it's the question of like getting access to the right information at the right time, right? Like there's information as a child that you would want to have, and it or like as a teenager and as a young adult, but then it's overwhelming because you have all of these options, right? And it would be excellent if you have like what BSJ is gonna be doing for Eri. He's gonna basically just say, hey, here he's like a tooltip, right? Like, here, these are the things you need to be thinking about, ABC. Okay, then think about it. So that's kind of like what I want Tome.gg to be. Like it's those kinds of pages, contextualized learning, and then depending on your context, like later on, like I can build this out as like a learning platform altogether where depending on your context, your age, maybe your background, whatever, the appropriate kinds of lessons would be tailored for you. And depending on your age and your interests. So your interest might be anime, your interest might be games, etc. I'll let it play now.
This is the stuff I want you to look out for, though, because if you don't know what you're looking for, Dota's kind of just a bunch of nothing, like a bunch of everything that looks like nothing. Like you don't actually know what you're looking at. So that's what I usually try to coach. And if I can get you thinking on your own, we kind of talked about this off cam. I can make it so that it doesn't just take me telling you. It's that you can apply whatever I'm giving you in any situation. And that's what we're trying to do here. Because if you're able to self-correct, then
That's
like
it.
1 or 2 hours of coaching session can do a lot. And because it's up to you to take care of the rest. And
Bro,
that's what
I'm
we're going
so excited, man.
Yeah.
I'm so again, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're like crazy busy right now, but for
Yeah.
you to make the time to do this,
Everyone's stuck at home.
I really appreciate it.
Turns out to be more business. What can you do?
Yes, it is. It is. It is. Thankfully, Predator paid for the promo code with me for you, so I'm good, man.
Nice,
I'm
nice. Okay.
Okay.
Any final questions before we get started?
As you know, I'm playing as a support. I'm playing mainly as 5. And people have been telling me it's really hard to kind of climb the ranks. Let's say, because I'm 1K right now. I lost like freaking. I calibrated at Guardian 5, which is like 1290, I think.
Okay.
And now I'm all the way down to 1000 because I just been losing. I've been winning I've been winning unranked games. Like I had a pretty good win, but now all my ranked games I've lost. And last night, we doubled down, bro. I doubled down, and I was so sure we were gonna win because they had like wait, who was this? This was oh my god, it was like a BB, Lion, Grim, Disruptor, and we still lost. They had like, I'm just like, and we had a Meepo, Jug, Shaman, Sand King, and
your
Pug
game
Net,
should be
like,
on the battle pass predictions. Like this is the 1K game with Eri in it. Let's see. Who do you think won it or whatever? That'd be.
We lost, bro.
Yeah. So, I think first and foremost, I'll introduce our series with my best impression. It's obviously I've never played in 1K. Like when I played 1K, I didn't think about Dota at all. So I don't have I don't remember really. And also back then MMR didn't exist, all that kind of stuff. But what I've noticed is like the less farm you have, the overall less impact you can have in the game. Like 30 minutes into the game, if you have 6K net worth and your carry has 20K, it's like he's gonna be 3 times as important to decide the game as you are.
So like, what I really like about talking about Dota 2 is that a lot of that concepts basically translate to life. Like BSJ is like saying, impact-wise in the game, you'll have less impact if you have less gold, right? Like you'll be able to contribute less to your team if you have less gold. And like when I think about it, well, yeah, of course, because you have fewer resources. So resource collection is one of the important, activities in Dota 2. And when I think about it, like in real life, that's kind of like the same kind of situation where you have more opportunity and more influence or power when you have more resources that you have collected. And that really depends on how you fashion those resources into a certain purpose. Like support heroes basically use their gold for support items, and that's a critical role, right? Just as like a carry basically has its own role. Yeah.
But I also think it's really important that, from my experience supporting, if I out-support the opponent, my carry on average is going to have a better game. I'll maybe have that extra force zap, that extra glimmer, whatever. That's going to make the difference for me, not just feeding randomly. And it's not that you're going to win every game, because I don't think as support you can necessarily take over every game and do that. But if your carry gets a better game every single one than the opponent, my firm belief is that you'll win at least 60%, and that's all it takes to gain MMR. So Dota, for me, since you're only one of 10 players, this is all just kind of bullshit numbers, but I guesstimate somewhere like around 30% of games, you have no impact on whether or not you win or lose. Like, your team will carry you, or you couldn't play well enough to win the game. Like, doesn't matter. Like, some of those games, like, your teammates play so well, or your teammates play so bad, it just, like, you can't make up for it one way or the other. And my goal is to make it so you're never the guy that's causing your team to lose. Like that's, if that removes 20% of games where it's your fault, right? Like, and that's what we're trying to do. So
I like what BSJ is like mentioning. It's basically you don't have full control over everything, but at least the things that you do have control of will minimize those things, right? Will minimize the things you can screw up, and will maximize the impact that you can actually do. And that's basically what knowledge is, right? That's basically what wisdom is. So moving on.
So that to me results.
I love that.
Yeah, it's it results in gaining MMR, in my opinion, because there's 9 other players in the game. If the other 9 are more likely to do it, then 5 out of 9 games, the game ruiner ain't you, right?
I just want to like highlight here. I've had experiences in Dota 2 where I play the game, I suck so bad, and I get so frustrated because like I'm not playing really well. But there are times where I play really really well and we still lose, and yeah, it just sucks. I guess what I'm highlighting here is that those kinds of experiences can also happen outside of Dota 2. That can happen, for example, if you're in a company and you're not really well suited for the job that you're being tasked to do. You're gonna feel really shitty because you don't feel like you're contributing enough or your impact isn't enough. Or it could also be that you're contributing really well, but there are problems that are outside of your own control, right? There are problems outside your own control, and you're already performing optimally, but then you just don't have control over the other things. So the things that you'll see later on, I bet, I haven't watched the whole thing, but you'll see later on how the focus really is on what you can do, and beginning from what you can do is like the selection of the things that you can do, which is like options, right? It's education, it's knowledge, it's what are the things that you can do.
And it ain't on your team. It ain't on your team. That's how I look at it. Go ahead.
I have a question, Coach B.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. At let's say immortal level and let's say the higher levels, let's say from the 5 to like 8K levels, can a 5 kind of influence how a game's gonna? Do they have that much impact at that high level?
I will say that from a carry player's perspective, my game is like 10 times better if my support knows what the hell they're doing. And I will tell you that if I'm a bad carry player, though, if you give me the freest game in the world and I chuck it into the dumpster, there's absolutely nothing you can do about that.
Yeah. Okay.
The goal is, though, at 10 minutes, if I have 500 more net worth than the opponent every game because you supported me well, we're going to win more than half of them, right? Like that's what I'm trying to say. So I will say that like the top 100 support players are like day and night better than ranked 500s. Like and I'm not saying that to like flame everyone else in the Dota world, but I'm saying as a core player, it is quite palpable, quite easy to tell when a guy actually knows what he's doing in the support role. So as a support player, the interesting part that I'm going to find out coaching you, I'm going to see how it plays out. I think a big part of supporting is like your job as a player is to make your core's games easier to play, better to play.
Yes.
It's like the same concept as having medics in war, right? Like support is an important role to play, whether you are having a small battle or like a large battle.
Yes. Make them more survivable, make them have more farm space, give them the vision they need. Whatever it takes. And every carry hero, every single one, has to be treated differently. And that's what a lot of players as supports just don't get it. I'm like...
So this is one of the topics that I really, really like. This is more about the hero characteristics, right? In Dota 2, there's different kinds of heroes. There's heroes that want to do a certain thing. Some heroes want to really farm. Some heroes want to keep fighting. Some heroes want to stick with another person all the time, and some heroes don't want to be close to another person, and the playstyles are completely different. And I think that's super fascinating because depending on the hero's characteristics, you get to also see how to hyper optimize that hero. For example, Anti-Mage has incredible mobility. So one thing that you can do is if you get Anti-Mage a Battle Fury, which is an item that basically cleaves damage, which means like it's a splash damage when you're actually hitting things. That means that you can meld two properties, right? The high mobility that's innate or characteristic of the hero, and this farming capability, which is granted by the item that you invested in. And when you put together these two characteristics of high mobility and capability to farm really fast, and you take advantage of those two characteristics as you play that character, then you get an insane advantage. It's a completely different Dota 2 game altogether with an anti-mage that buys Hand of Midas, which is not a farm. It's a farming item. Like, it's a farming item that gains you gold over time, but then it doesn't gel well with anti-mage's mobility. So I guess what I want to like step back and like talk about here is the same concept in understanding your own self, right? You as a person has your own you have your own characteristics. And knowing yourself, knowing the things that you like to do, the things you don't like to do, those are things that are critical information. Because if you know how your character wants to play, then you can determine what kinds of items to purchase, right? Or what other things to invest in so that you have characteristics that are complementary or have like multiplicative benefit by just having them in the same set or just having it in the same person. And yeah, sometimes it may not be the case where you can have skills that are adjacent to each other. But it just goes to highlight the importance of knowing your character, right? Or knowing yourself, because that really sets your direction clearly about what you want to do, right? Yeah, so let's move on.
And so even though I don't play support very often, I feel like my laning stage is always really good because I just know what the core needs from me. Like, I know this carry wants to be treated this way and all that kind of stuff. He wants primarily solo XP, or they want me to babysit them and stand in front, you know? And even if I don't quite know the hero's capabilities mid to late game, maybe I could have casted spells better because I don't have too much experience on the hero. The early game is really just something you can just not mess up. Like, you can just do it correctly. And that, for me, is the main impact of supports. It's not that I'm not going to look at your later game decisions.
Yes.
But especially at your level, because I talked about with the distribution of net worth, once your teammates have way more net worth than you, your main impact in the game is the first 5 to 10 minutes. Like, if you play...
So I just want to like pause and stop here. What I like about this is that, you know, there are times where certain activities are more critical. Like, for example, what BSJ is highlighting here is that support players have a great role in making sure that the carry's life during early game, while the carry still doesn't have money and doesn't have gold and doesn't have experience, and everything's still static. Things aren't moving in the map. People aren't ganking so frequently. It's still the laning stage. The appropriate thing to do here is to enable, like as a support, it's to enable your carry to be able to farm. And he was saying it's not that he's not gonna check what that person, what Eri would be doing like later on in mid game and late game, but there's an area that you guys can focus on first, which would be that early game or that stage where you're supporting the carry to perform. What I want to like step back and highlight here would be the same kind of importance of grade school, high school, university education. These are the times where at this time things are very static. Things aren't moving so much, right? So there are clear things that you want to do in that laning stage or that early game. So some people, so just for stereotypes, right? There are nerds, there are jocks, there are, you know, the popular people, there are the bullies and blah blah blah, etc. There's different caricatures, different kinds of people in high school or in grade school or in university. But knowing knowing yourself would also like tell you how you want to behave or how you want to optimize in that early game. Now, some people may have already like missed their chance. They're like, well, Darren, I'm 19 already, or Darren, I'm 22, or I'm 25, or I'm 32. You know, I'm not in the early stage anymore. You know, I can't. There's nothing else that I can do about that early game, and that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. The whole point of like the thing that I'm like highlighting here is that yes, you may not have had great or excellent or perfect decision making when you were younger, but just like in Dota 2, once you die 7 times in the early game or whatever. When you come back, you have to reset. You know, you have to reset and think, okay, what is the game state right now? Okay, who is strong? Who are the people we need to avoid? What are the dangers that we need to avoid? What are the opportunities we can get? And that's the same kind of focus that I want people to have, right? The same kind of impartiality that you have in a game. In a game, you're not like, you know, 2 months ago there was one game. Yeah, it was the seventh game of the night. Yeah, that time I was so beaten up, and then the guy was like making fun of me. Like, no, like oftentimes like in games, you'd be like, okay, I died, fine, I made a mistake, that was something wrong. What can I do to get over the mistake? So, yeah, I'm just highlighting the part where um, it's important for us um, to assess the game state impartially and not have our emotions completely ruin the round that we're playing, right? The Dota game that we're playing. It's that kind of focus, right? It's the focus. It's that objective analysis of the game state and what you can do strategically. It's hard to do real time. That's why coaching sessions are really important, because like BSJ is gonna be able to like step back and say, okay, what happened here? They can literally go, play by play and analyze what was the thought process behind behind this scenario. And that would be great. That would be great if you actually have that for your own personal life. And I think there's a lot of value in learning that can come from that. Moving on.
Play that flawlessly, I am 100% sure a support will gain MMR. I am like 100%. Will you have games where you play perfectly and lose? Absolutely. It happens to me as a carry player where I'm like 6-0 and I'm like, this game's lost. I can't win.
Really?
Yeah, it happens less as a carry player. It happens less, but it will still happen. Okay. So as a support player, I think one of the best disciplines to have, and what I'm going to try to teach in our sessions, will be focusing on the things you could have done better. Some things where you're supposed to pull and your carry just feeds in lane. And I'm like, all you can do is tell him you're pulling, play safer. And if he still feeds, what I worry about from supports is that they stop pulling. Like, they stop doing what is correct because their mistake, or like their play made the carry, mess up or whatever. Yes. And so I'm going to focus on telling you what these heroes need. And you're just going to have to accept the fact that even if you're doing the right thing, sometimes your carry is just going to shit the bed and die.
I think that's so iconic about working with other people. But I like the whole point of like, just do your job well and communicate, right? Align with the people, like align with the direction and strategy with people, and hopefully it works. But it can still happen. Fuck ups.
I got you.
But at the same time, I'm going to try to pick you heroes, and I'm going to talk about supports that will have more impact as the game goes on. Because I've found if I'm supporting weaker level players, in my perspective, obviously weaker level player is different.
Yes.
But I want to be able to function without my cores in the game. And what I mean is that if I'm like a Bane, my only job is to like set up kills and run around the map. And if my teammates don't try to capitalize on that, I'm literally just a Bane walking around. Yeah, doing nothing, right? Like, I can't actually do anything. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I like to pick heroes that can clear waves if I can. I like to pick heroes that have like solo playmaking potential. These
like
Shaman, Skyrath if you have to get crazy at the 5 in terms of kills. Jakiro can like take towers, clear waves. Wyvern can take or clear waves for you. Grimstroke clears waves. I'm just mentioning Rubik, whatever. But you're 5, so I mentioned some 4s there. But if I'm only playing these like save or non-wave clearing supports, the minute the game gets weird, you kind of just stand there, and so that's what we're going to try to avoid happening in your games, because all I know is at 1K and the lower you go, games stop looking like Dota to me. Like, I'm like, what am I watching? Like, everything about what I know about Dota, it's not working, so I want my hero to be functional around the team if possible. Like, I want your hero to be able to help. But at the same time, you're first picking your hero, right? Like, so if I'm talking to a carry player, I'm going to talk to them about drafting. I'm going to talk to them about, when to pick your hero, why, based on whatever your 5 position, whatever. But for you, you pick your hero first, and you're just a complete mercy of your teammates to hope their heroes go with yours, or whatever. So best case scenario, your team pick heroes that work well with yours, and you play around them. But worst case scenario, they don't, and your hero will still have some sort of function.
Impact.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're basing this on the kind of draft that usually happens at this level. You're like they don't really matchups is not really something that's thought about. I mean, as you know, heroes that synergize together is not really thought about because I mean, with me sometimes it's like it's an all carry lineup. I mean, with SEA, so sometimes you do get that.
Yeah, and that's why. That's mainly why I want your hero to be self-sufficient, because there's the weird way to describe Dota, especially if people are super new, is some heroes have like one way they have to play the game. Like if it's a really good game for the hero, you pick it, it plays the game that way, and if the game's played that way, the hero wins. If the game is played any other way, that hero just does nothing. Like it just flops. And then there's other heroes that kind of like they can play 4 or 5 different ways. Like they can be like, these are more of the flex lane picks, in the cores. Some heroes can be played mid, safe lane, or off lane sometimes. And the point is, if you pick those heroes, then regardless of what your team does, you'll figure something out to do. You're not relying on a specific game plan. It's like if you pick Oracle and your team doesn't pick anyone that relies on the save and benefits from your save, now like you're just an Oracle. Like, what now?
Yeah.
But on the same time, Jakiro will always take towers. He'll always push waves. He's always a little bit of team fight. He's always a decent laner. It's like, I'm just giving... I think Jakiro's like a really good example of a hero like this. So if I pull up these replays and you gave me replays of heroes that don't fit this description, I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm not trying to like micromanage people's hero pool, but I'll also tell you the limitations of your hero. So like I've had people come to me saying, BSJ, as a support... my team just never pushes. I don't know what to do. And I'm like, well, I think you should pick heroes
that can push.
Can push, right? Or it's like, my team never kills anybody. What do I do? I'm like, maybe you should prioritize supports that have stuns, And just knowing that if you're a Lion and your team never wants to take towers, maybe you should stop picking Lion for the foreseeable future. Pick a hero that...
I love Lion. It's so funny. I love Lion.
I see it on my profile here. I have Dota pulled up. So I can see that your highest Dota Plus level is Lion. That's why I mentioned it. Yeah. Lion's a good example of a hero that can make plays, but he's never taken tower. No. So... okay. Are you ready to pull up our first replay, or do you have any more questions?
Yes, I am. First of all, coming from what we spoke about, can you give me coming from being able to maneuver, regardless of what situation I'm at, in my games, what are the top 3 heroes you feel I should focus on? Just coming from that.
I think you should always have one of your top...
So I'm going to stop right here and not watch the rest of it. But ultimately, what I do want to do is go through their sessions and highlight the advice that BSJ would be giving in the context of Eri Neeman's journey to get better at Dota 2. And then file them as pages in Tome. I'm not going to do that right now, but that's what I am interested in doing. I'm going to stop right here and probably go play Dota 2 with my friends or Final Fantasy 14. In any case, it's time for me to relax and enjoy. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for joining me and hearing a little bit more about what I have in store for Tome.gg. So I think I'll take this time to actually talk about some call to action for Tome.gg. So I think the things that I would need help with right now would be number 1, I would need help populating Tome.gg. So that would be going through videos and finding some snippets of content that we want to actually add. Let me just try to pull up this this example, because I already built a tool. I built a tool that's gonna enable me to actually add content for Tome.gg. There we go. Okay. So here's a way for me to actually add pages on Tome.gg. And I basically just write the title of the content. A while ago, it was timing is essential, and then some content, which can be written down in Markdown. And then the current platform, maybe it's YouTube, maybe it's Twitch or whatever. And then the external reference would be the URL video. So for example, this URL video of BSJ talking with Eri Neeman would be this one. So I can just copy the URL or just copy that video ID, and we just place it here. And then we just say which part of the session would actually contain it. So if I were to give an example here, let's backtrack a little bit and let's just get one.
Regardless of what situation I'm at, you will
never take. So I can see that you're for the foreseeable future. And your team never wants to take towers. It's like my team never kills anybody. Just knowing that if you have a future, pick a hero that
I love.
I think this.
I pull up these replays, and you gave me replays of heroes that don't fit this system of a hero like this. So if I pull up these replays, I'm just giving always a little bit of team fight. Of a hero like this. So
this is 1534. 15 times 60 plus 34. This would be 934. And if we just slap this on here, and then let's say I want to go back here, and
I pull up these replays, and you gave me replays of heroes that don't fit this description. I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm not trying to micromanage people's hero pool, but I'll also tell you the limitations of your hero. So I've had people come to me saying, BSJ, as a support, my team just never pushes. I don't know what to do. And I'm like, well, I think you should pick heroes that can push, right? Or
there. So that was around 30 seconds, from 34 to 54. So that's 20 seconds. So let's just slap on plus 20 seconds or 23 seconds. So 9 plus 5 and then plus 4 maybe. So that would be 8. Okay, 958. And then we just copy this one. And then we just slap it on here to the external reference. And then this one would be direction is yours. You get to decide what your direction is, but having a little wisdom about, having a little knowledge on the pros and cons of the paths forward helps, right? So BSJ just isn't really taking control of Eri Neeman and saying, hey, these are the heroes that you only have to play. But you're free to choose what kind of game style, what kind of play style you actually want to do. But from a mentoring perspective, it would be great just knowing what the pros and cons, what it actually means, to choose that direction. So yeah, direction is yours. And then we just click add. And supposedly, this would show up here. So direction is yours. You get to decide, blah, 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 blah. So if I click this one, hopefully this is supposed to bring me to tome.gg and then demonstrate that the page was actually added. And then this is escaping the trench with Eri. And we can basically watch it.
If I pull up these replays, and you gave me replays of heroes that don't fit this description, I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm not trying to micromanage people's hero pool, but I'll also tell you the limitations of your hero. So I've had people come to me saying, BSJ, as a support, my team just never pushes. I don't know what to do. And I'm like, well, I think you should pick heroes that can push, right? Or it's my team never kills anybody. What do I do? I'm like, maybe you should prioritize.
Yeah, direction is yours. You get to decide what your direction is, but having a little knowledge on the pros and cons of the paths forward helps. So yeah, going back, I basically need help adding content on tome.gg. So if you're interested in that, that would be a big help. There's a lot of different things that we can curate. There is Valorant, there's Elden Ring, there's Dota 2. Fundamentally, it's about lowering the accessibility, it's increasing accessibility and lowering the cost to learning, right? Because there's a lot of information, a lot of knowledge that's already available on YouTube, a lot of knowledge already available on Twitch. And it's just a matter of finding the right knowledge at the right time, right? So that's the whole point of tome.gg. It's curation and contextualization for the person that's actually learning. So if you care about Dota 2, consume the things that are filtered for Dota 2. If you care about Valorant, then learn the concepts through Valorant and then apply it in your personal life, right? But ultimately, learning in these microcosms, right, or these sandboxes in games, you just need to like bring it out and put it into the places that you actually need, because you already learned them, you already experienced them, you already see it in the TV series that you actually watch. It's just a matter of actually recognizing it when it is at play and actually practicing it, because you know that that's actually what's happening. So yeah, if you're interested to actually contribute content on tome.gg, please reach out to me. There's this newsletter that you can join, and if you finish the newsletter, there's also a link to a Discord channel that you can reach out to me with. Yeah. Simplest way to connect with me, I think, would be connecting with me on Twitter, which is just Darren Sapalo. Yeah. I love to talk about learning and writing the things I learned. So yeah, thank you for joining me today. I think that would basically be it for today. Again, thank you for being here.